Hi, it's Michael here from MTB Direct. Today we're going to look at how to make your brakes drag free. So the tools we're going to need to align our brake today, firstly some grease, a piston press tool which helps me push back the pistons. Alternatively, you can use a screwdriver though. This is a rotor alignment tool for truing your rotor. You can alternatively use a shifting spanner though. You're also going to need some Allen keys. You're going to need a mobile phone. You're also going to need some high purity isopropyl alcohol and a clean rag. So the front brake on this bike is dragging. Now it's not too much and most of it is in the rotor, but we're going to try and get rid of it anyway because it's pretty annoying. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at the lever free play. I'm happy with the rear, but the front lever has a little bit less free play than the rear. So I always like to make sure the brakes come in like they have the same feel left and right. So what I'm going to try to do is remove the contact point so that the pads retract a little bit further on the front brake between squeezes and make sure that the amount of free play at each lever is the same. Now the Shimano brakes do have what they call a free stroke adjustment here. To be honest, I don't believe it actually does anything. So I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way, and that's by pushing the pistons apart. So to do this, I'm going to remove my front wheel. And I'm going to use this pad spreading tool. It does actually work much better than a screwdriver. You can use a screwdriver in a pinch because most people don't have one of these, but because these are so much wider, the problem with a screwdriver is that when you push it in and wobble it like this, one, it can mark your pads. Secondly, it often results in your pistons kind of going sideways. The other thing you've got to be super careful with is that your screwdriver is spotlessly clean because we don't want any contaminants on our brake pads. So you carefully get it inside there and just gently pry it apart like that. Again, just super gently. And you move it between squeezes. So you can do the same thing with this pad spreading tool. As you can see, it does actually work a lot better. Let's see how we go. Now with my axle firmly tightened, I'm going to squeeze my lever and see how that's changed. Now it hasn't changed anything, so I'm going to do the same thing except push them apart some more. Essentially what I'm trying to do is push the pistons further back, and by doing that it will result in more clearance between the pads and the rotor and result in more free play at the rotor lever as well. So now I've got more free play at the lever, and when I spin it now the pads are returning enough and I have enough clearance. Oh, now it's just started to drag again. Now the other thing I can do for alignment is look at the caliper alignment. So there's a couple of little tricks I'm going to show you guys today with this. The first thing is I'm going to put grease under the heads of the bolts. Now what this does is reduce the amount of friction when you're tightening the bolts. So when you do that last bit of adjustment, the torque will not affect your fine-tuning adjustment. Now you've got to be super careful that you don't get any grease on the rotor itself, because I often find that when you're adjusting the caliper you get it just right, but then when you do the final last adjustment the caliper actually moves from the torque of tightening the bolt. So I find by greasing that part of it, that doesn't happen. Now when it comes to aligning the caliper to the rotor, what I typically like to do is get my phone and go to a blank screen and turn up the brightness, and I use that as a guide so I can see how the rotor is tracking between the pads. The other way you can do it is in a well-lit room. You can put I happen to be working here on white tiles, but if you're not working on white tiles and you're in a workshop, if you use a couple of sheets of paper, you can look down and see the shadows from the pads and see how the rotor is tracking between the pads. When I'm going to align this, what I like to do is I'm going to start by using the small end of the Allen key. I'm going to loosen off both of them. I'm going to squeeze the brake lever and now tighten up the rotor just until that the bolts start to tighten up, but I just tighten them up as soon as they hit. Now, the benefit of that is I can now move one side of the caliper if I need. Now I look down and I can actually see that it's dragging on this side of the caliper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen off this one, but leave the other one just very loose, and I can actually move it across just by visually looking down. So what I do, I actually pinch the caliper and the mount and just move it to where I want to move it, and then I snug it up. Then I go to the other end and do the same thing. So I'm just going to move it across slightly, ever so slightly. Okay, so I need to move it across slightly more. And we're just doing micro adjustments here. It's very close, but there is that slight warp in the rotor. So I'm just going to tighten one a little bit, then the other, like so. And I'm going to true the last bit out with a rotor truing tool. So to true the rotor, I'm going to use a rotor truing tool. You can alternatively use a shifter if you don't have one of these. If you are going to use a shifter though, you've got to make sure it's very clean. So what I'm going to use is isopropyl alcohol, which you can get from an electronics store, to clean the tool. Make sure there's no contaminants on there, because I don't want to grease anywhere near my rotor. So I'm going to rotate it till I hear it hit. I'm going to see what side it's hitting on, and then I'm just going to bend it away. And silence is what we're after. So I hope you found that helpful today. So please subscribe for more MTB related tips.